Hi there, and welcome to this quick lecture on some lessons in UX design. A lot of the information for this lecture is pulled from UXPin, so if you do not already follow UXPin, if you are not familiar with their blog, please go check them out. So here's a couple quick lessons in UX design. First one is how Fitz's law applies to design. So if you're not aware of what Fitz's law is, and most people are not, is Fitz's law came from the study of retail spaces. If you think way back, prior to maybe World War II, if you went to a store, a lot of times you would have a person that would help you. You didn't shop by yourself. You walked in, you said, I need these things, and that person helped you shop and walked you through the store or got things for you. So they were kind of the gatekeepers as far as a retail environment. Once you move more into 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, that idea of having assistants in a store went away, and we've moved more towards having people shop themselves. They walk into the store and they know where to go. Well, a lot of that study came in to say, well, if somebody walks into a store, how do they know where to go? How do we get them to go where we want them to go? How do we get them through start to finish in this retail experience to make sure that they aren't frustrated, they get the things they need to get, they understand the organization, they know what they need to do. So if you think about that in a built retail environment, it makes sense as well in a UX UI design standpoint of how do I get people to navigate through my site, go where they need to go, understand the space that they're in. People don't want to log on to a site and say, or open up an app and be like, I don't know how to use this. You want to open it up and already know what you're supposed to do. You know what to click. You know how to make it work. So that's Fitz's law, and that's how it applies to design. So when you apply this to design, it's clickable areas of buttons. Applications of this are twofold. First, the higher priority buttons are presented bigger than others. And second, that clickable areas of all buttons are as large as possible, meaning not just the words within the button, but the whole graphic itself. So if I have this take a tour, this entire thing is clickable. So if I'm on a mobile device, I can hit that button. It's not going to be really difficult. I don't have to pinch and zoom to try and get to these buttons. The second thing is place key functions in easy to reach areas in order to minimize the amount of thought involved in moving the cursor. The most popular functions should be placed in the optimum areas of the screen, namely the borders and corners, with as little mechanical skill needed to move the cursor there. So if the whole point of your site is to get people to download something, you don't want to put that download button all the way at the bottom. You want to make sure that if I log into the site, I can see that big old button that says download here. Cool, I'm going to click that and I'm going to download it. If it's hidden in the bottom, if it's hidden and 3 clicks deep within the site, people are not going to download what you want them to download. So they need to have that minimum effort, minimum mouse movements to get to where they need to go. And remembering that anytime you start on a site, people are always going to start up here. They're going to start in that origin point, top left corner. So I start here, I move down. Typically sites move in that F pattern where it's top, left to right, down, left to right. So moving in that F pattern. You want to optimize proximity. So if 2 or more functions are frequently used in tandem, place them as close to each other as possible. This helps the user notice when the next step is and minimizes the amount they must move the cursor. So the other thing that you want to avoid in optimizing that proximity is if you have submit cart right next to clear cart, that is not what you want to have. So if you're putting one thing that'll say, hey, I'm going to submit this order right next to delete my order, people may click the wrong thing and all of a sudden you've now hit a frustration point. So making sure that those proximity things are where they need to be. The heart of Fitz's law is that users should move the cursor as little as possible. So making sure that they're not having to move, they're not having to scroll. We always want to try and avoiding scrolling as much as we possibly can, even in long sites, making sure that the heart of the content is in that first fold of a site, is in the top of the app. That way we don't have to scroll for forever to get to the bottom to get to where we need to go. So by paying closer attention to elements, locations on screen, designers can improve their UX and create a more streamlined interface. The second rule is don't neglect microcopy. You're already aware of how important your written content is, but do you know just how much weight individual words carry? A line of instruction, the phrasing of a call to action, or even changing the word proceed to go can have a game-changing effect on your interface. Microcopy is best used to explain a potentially confusing part of the interface, alleviate some fears or concerns the user might have, or advertise small features. Microcopy is a great way to get the personality of your brand across. So if your brand is fun and funky and cool, that microcopy is the way that your brand can talk to your consumer or to your user and say, hey, we're fun and funky and cool. If you say, hey, we are professional, we take this seriously, you want to make sure that your microcopy is professional, it is serious, and it is clear and easy to understand. For avoiding confusion, user testing can reveal where most people get confused, so you know where to add additional instructions. You don't want to overload the user by explaining every little function, so research will show you if and when it's necessary. So things like if I have to enter my username and password, sometimes it's nice to say, hey, you don't have a different username, it's your email. Hey, that helps me. That's a little bit of microcopy. But now I understand that when I'm logging in, it needs an email. It doesn't need a specific username that I have set up. For alleviating concerns, a small reminder that you won't spam or that your newsletters are infrequent can make or break a conversation. This kind of feedback is welcome when the user is about to make that step anyway. In that vein, mentioning the option of a free trial or a limited time promotion is just good business. So if you've updated your interface, sometimes it's nice to just have that little thing that says, hey, we've updated. Come take a look at what we've done. And having the option to say, hey, no, that's okay. It's not like, yes, no thanks. Oh, I do want to go see. And even having, if you have errors, to say, hey, it's okay, try again. Something may have gone wrong. Or having that feedback of like, hey, your username is correct, or hey, by the way, your password needs to be 8 to 16 characters long and have these things where you go, oh yeah, it's got to have that. So now my password's this. That kind of microcopy is very reassuring to your users. Rule 3 is lean on patterns for support. UI patterns are familiar elements that exist in a lot of different sites. For example, if you see a right-facing triangle over an image, you know that it's a play button and that image is really a video. While there's something to be said for individuality and standing apart from your competition, using tried and true patterns can spare your users the hassle of having to relearn new systems for every new site they go to. In the play button example above, that one tiny graphic relieves the necessity of including a line of instruction or a confusing new icon representing play. When you look at this image that is from UXPen, you probably thought, hey, this looks clickable. And not only does this look clickable, this is going to take me to a video on YouTube. I didn't have to do anything to this other than have that little graphic here that is very recognizable. That's a recognizable pattern that says, hey, this is going to be something that I'm going to click and it's going to launch a video on YouTube. That's a pattern for support. I didn't have to make any new icons. I didn't have to teach you anything. You automatically knew what that was. So in a nutshell, patterns are shortcuts that save your user from extra cognitive load. In other words, thinking too much. They give your interface an intuitive and familiar feel, which puts the user at ease and frees up their attention to focus on what's important. For example, the content of that video. So if you're looking for patterns to lean on, there's a lot of UX UI kits out there. There's a lot of icons that you already know. So if I look at this, it's a nice little free icon kit that I could go download. I understand that this button's going to take me home. This button's going to make me like something. This button's going to probably either take a photo or look through my photo library. That little magnifying glass means search. All of these icons already exist out there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can adjust them to kind of match the look and feel of your site, so colors, things like that. But don't feel that you have to create something new every single time you do a UI kit. So if we look at this example here, this horrible, awful mess of graphics, you don't know where to look first. There's a lot of things vying for your attention and nothing really stands out as being important one way or another. The longer you look, your brain may start to pick out things here or there, but that doesn't mean that you've really picked out anything in particular. So thinking about things like hierarchy, what's important, what's not important, how do I order my content, that's all very helpful. If you think about decision-making paralysis, the more options you give people, the less likely they are to follow through with them. At some point, if you say, well, do I do this, this, or this? I don't know. I've already given up. So you want to make sure that the choices are kind of limited to say, okay, this is the most important things that you're going to do, and I'm not going to just break everything down into multiple menu items. So, but on the other hand, sometimes more than 7 items are necessary. In such cases, strategies such as chunking can minimize the strain. Chunking is grouping and organizing content in a more comprehensive manner, typically by putting similar items together. This example is from Etsy, and there are actually 32 different pieces of content. However, by organizing them into 8 groups of 4 according to category, the site's able to showcase a large number of their products without burdening the user. Chunking is a great way to organize your information. So if you have long lists or lots of various versions of a similar product, a lot of times you can group those together and say, hey, I know we offer this one thing, but we offer it, you can buy it by itself, you can buy it in a 5-pack, a 10-pack, you can get it in a case. You don't want to list those as separate clickable items. You can say, hey, this is one clickable item, and say multiple sizes available or multiple quantities available. And then people know, hey, if I want this, then I can jump in there and say, oh, there's a bunch of different colors or a bunch of different sizes, as opposed to having that all expanded out and taking up a lot of valuable real estate on your site or on your app. And rule number 5 is proactively use white space. White space or negative space is often seen as empty space, tempting designers to fill it because, well, why wouldn't you? This is a dangerous line of thinking, though. The truth is that white space is an active element, and you can add a lot to your design if you know how to use it. Using white space proactively can add the following benefits. Number 1, it can improve comprehension. Spacing out your elements can make them more legible and allow your user to register everything in their heads. Studies have shown that adequate white space can increase comprehension of up to 20%. So proactively using white space can also lead to things like hierarchy. I clearly know where to start. I know where my eye needs to move, because there's no reason for me to look over here in these negative areas. There's nothing there. My eye automatically funnels to, all right, looking at this cool thing here, looking at where I can get it. There's nothing else that is distracting me from what I need to do and where I need to go and what I need to click. Proactively using white space can clarify relationships. So as hinted with chunking, grouping objects together suggests similarity. This extends beyond aiding memory and into showing different objects have the same functionality, but it only works with enough white space between groups. If everything is all smashed together, there's not enough space for me to understand that this is one group and this is another group and this is another group. It becomes overwhelming otherwise. Proactively using white space can attract attention. The more white space around an element, the more the eye will be drawn to it. So if you look at the Google homepage, all the white space funnels the user attention to the main focus, which is the search bar. Furthermore, the spacing between the buttons and the bar lets the user quickly know the different options without having to think too hard. They don't have too many buttons. Google does this very intentionally. There's nothing else you can do on that Google homepage besides really search for something. All the usability defaults to that search bar. What am I searching for? There's nothing else. I'm not checking my mail. I'm not reading the top 10 news articles for the day. It's not giving me my horoscope. It's not giving me the weather. It's just saying, what are you looking for? Google did this very, very successfully. Once upon a time, Yahoo had been the bigger search engine. However, even if you go to Yahoo's homepage now, it's very busy, it's very cluttered, there's a lot of things vying for your attention, where Google said, we're going to clean all that off. What are you looking for? I don't have to think too hard. I'm not going to get distracted. I'm going to just go and I'm going to search. So those are your 5 tips for UX design. Hopefully that helps give you some ideas to think about and some tricks and tips to work with as you're working on your next UX UI project. Good luck and have fun designing. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.